By the time you click this video, a massive, completely silent teenager had already been walking alone in the freezing rain for hours. He has no home, he has no bed. He carries his entire life's possessions in a single flimsy plastic grocery bag. He thinks he's completely invisible to the wealthy, privileged world driving right past him. But one single audacious decision by a woman in a luxury car is about to completely shatter the rigid social boundaries of an entire city. If you find yourself constantly searching for the deeper meaning behind the movies you watch, you belong here. Hit that subscribe button and join the Epic Lens family. We uncover the real, profound stories behind the screen together. We must start with the geography of extreme division, Memphis, Tennessee. It is a city completely split in two by an invisible, impenetrable wall. On one side is Hurt Village, a dark, suffocating project completely overrun by poverty, gang violence, and generational trauma. On the other side are the wealthy, highly privileged Christian suburbs. The two worlds are never supposed to collide. Michael Oher is a product of Hurt Village. He is 17 years old. He is a massive, towering physical specimen, but psychologically he is entirely broken. He was ripped away from his drug-addicted mother as a child. He has bounced completely through the broken foster care system. He has absolutely no academic record. He barely speaks. He is a ghost trapped in the body of a giant. Through a completely desperate favor, Michael is enrolled at Wingate Christian School. The football coach, Bud Cotton, looks at Michael's sheer size and sees a human bulldozer. But a school built for the elite does not know how to handle a ghost. Michael is completely alienated. He wanders the pristine hallways like a lost, terrified animal. The teachers look at his blank tests and completely give up on him. They think he is entirely incapable of learning. He wears the same spare polo shirt every single day. He washes his clothes in the laundromat by himself. When the school closes, he sneaks into the freezing gymnasium to sleep because he has absolutely nowhere else to go. He is entirely alone in the universe. Until the night before Thanksgiving, it is pouring freezing rain. The temperature is dropping rapidly. Michael is walking down the dark, empty road wearing nothing but a thin polo shirt and shorts. He is walking toward the school gym to find heat. A heavy, expensive luxury car drives past him. Inside is the Tuohy family. Leigh Anne Tuohy is the matriarch. She is a wealthy, highly assertive interior designer. She operates her life, her family, and her social circles with absolute, unbreakable control. She is a woman of immense privilege. Leigh Anne sees the massive teenager walking in the freezing rain. The psychological tension of this moment completely shifts the trajectory of both of their lives. In a divided city, the wealthy do not stop for the poor. They lock their doors. They drive faster. But Leigh Anne makes an absolute, uncompromising command. She tells her husband Sean to stop the car. She steps out into the freezing rain. She walks directly up to the towering, silent teenager. She does not show fear. She demands to know where he is going. When Michael mumbles that he is going to the gym because it is warm, Leigh Anne's entire worldview completely fractures. She realizes this boy is entirely homeless. Leigh Anne does not offer him a ride. She does not give him a $20 bill. She makes a completely radical, highly dangerous decision. She puts him in the back of her expensive car. She drives him directly to her massive, pristine mansion. She points to the expensive couch in the living room and tells him he is sleeping there tonight. It is a massive act of charity, but it is also a massive risk. Sean Tuohy is terrified. They just brought a stranger from the projects into a house with their sleeping children. The next morning, Leigh Anne wakes up early. She creeps downstairs. She expects to see the TV stolen. She expects Michael to be entirely gone. She looks at the couch. Michael is gone, but the blankets are perfectly, immaculately folded. Leigh Anne walks out the front door. Michael is walking away down the street, head down, completely returning to the invisible shadows. She stops him. She brings him back inside to spend the holiday with her family. And slowly, the couch becomes a permanent fixture. Leigh Anne buys him a heavy bed. She buys him clothes. When she shows him his new bedroom, Michael looks around the quiet, safe space. He looks at Leigh Anne and whispers a completely heartbreaking, shattering truth. "I'd never had one before." Leigh Anne thinks he means a room, but Michael corrects her. "A bed." The psychological weight of that statement completely crushes Leigh Anne. She realizes the absolute, staggering depth of his deprivation. She decides in that exact moment that Michael Oher is no longer a charity case. He is under her absolute protection. But charity in a deeply divided city is a highly volatile action. What happens when the wealthy, privileged high society realizes that a massive, traumatized outsider is no longer just a temporary guest, but is actively becoming a permanent part of the family? Leigh Anne Tuohy brings Michael completely into her world of absolute privilege. But privilege is often just a very expensive, highly polished cage. Leigh Anne sits at a luxurious, high-society country club lunch with her wealthy friends. They are drinking expensive wine. They are wearing designer clothes and they are whispering. They look at Leigh Anne like she has completely lost her mind. One of the women leans in. She smiles a tight, judgmental smile. She asks Leigh Anne if she is absolutely terrified of having a massive black teenager from the projects sleeping under the same roof as her teenage daughter Collins. The prejudice is completely unfiltered. It is polite, wealthy, smiling racism. The psychological tension at the table completely shatters. Leigh Anne does not apologize. She does not shrink. She looks her wealthy friend directly in the eye and tells her, "Shame on you." Leigh Anne realizes the absolute rot of her own social circle. She makes a permanent psychological break from the high society expectations. She is entirely choosing the massive silent teenager over the comfort of the country club. But protecting Michael from wealthy whispers is entirely different from protecting him on the gridiron. Michael begins spring football practice. He is a towering physical force, but he is completely, catastrophically failing. The coaches are screaming at him. They are treating him like a violent gladiator. They want him to crush the opposition. But Michael Oher is not a violent person. The state psychological evaluation showed he scored entirely in the 90th percentile for one specific, defining trait, protective instincts. Michael refuses to hurt the opposing players. He is passive. He is terrified of his own sheer size. Coach Cotton completely loses his mind. He thinks the human bulldozer is a complete, unfixable failure. But Leigh Anne understands the absolute psychology of trauma. She marches directly onto the grass field in her expensive heels. She completely bypasses the screaming coaches. She walks right up to the massive, sweating, overwhelmed teenager. She grabs his heavy face mask. She does not talk to him about aggression. She does not talk to him about football. She talks to him entirely about family. She points to the quarterback. She tells Michael that the quarterback is his younger brother, SJ. She points to the running back. She tells Michael that it's his sister, Collins. She tells him his only job in his entire field is to completely, violently protect his family from the blindside. The psychological switch violently flips. The deep, unhealed trauma of his past, the vulnerable mother he could not protect, the siblings he lost in the broken system is completely redirected. Michael Oher is no longer playing a violent game. He is fighting an absolute war to protect the only people who have ever loved him. The next play begins. Michael fires off the line of scrimmage. He hits the opposing defensive lineman with absolute terrifying force. He completely bulldozes the massive player. He drives him entirely off the grass, completely across the cinder track, and violently pins him against the heavy metal fence. The coaches are entirely speechless. The field goes completely silent. The ultimate left tackle is officially born, but physical dominance is absolutely useless if the academic machine completely crushes you. Michael has a 0.6 grade point average. To play Division I college football, he needs a massive, almost impossible academic miracle. Enter Miss Sue. She is a completely relentless, highly educated private tutor. Miss Sue does not treat Michael like he is stupid. He realizes his brain simply processes information completely differently. She uses football plays to teach him complex biology. She uses verbal exams. They completely bypass the rigid, failing public school methods. Michael begins to read. He begins to write. The ghost completely wakes up. He becomes the most heavily recruited high school football player in the entire country. Massive university coaches flood the Tuohy living room. Nick Saban, Lou Holtz, the future is entirely golden. Michael officially joins the Tuohy family. He has a mother. He has a father. He has a completely safe, unbreakable foundation. But massive success built on a sudden rise always attracts the wolves. Just as Michael is preparing to sign his massive college commitment to Ole Miss, a terrifying, highly aggressive federal machine arrives. The NCAA sends a ruthless investigator. She sits across from Michael in a completely sterile, suffocating interrogation room. She does not see a heartwarming story of a saved life. She sees a massive, highly illegal conspiracy. She begins to violently twist the psychological knife. She looks at the traumatized teenager and asks him an absolutely devastating question. Did the Tuohy family actually love him? Or did wealthy, obsessive, Ole Miss boosters completely manipulate a homeless, traumatized teenager, adopting him just to breed a massive, unstoppable football player for their favorite university? Next, the psychological poison completely takes hold. The NCAA investigator's words echo violently in Michael's mind. For his entire life, he was completely invisible. And suddenly, a wealthy family takes him in, buys him a truck, hires him a tutor, and pushes him entirely toward their alma mater. Michael's deep, unhealed trauma violently resurfaces. He feels like he is no longer a son. He feels like he is a massive, heavily funded athletic investment. He leaves the interrogation room. He looks at Leigh Anne. The absolute trust is completely shattered. He runs away. Michael does not just leave the house, he entirely rejects the wealthy, privileged Christian suburbs. He walks back into the dark, suffocating, completely desperate streets of Herd Village. He is searching for his biological mother, but the project has completely swallowed her. He wanders into a dark, smoke-filled apartment. It is operated by Alton, a ruthless, heavily armed gang leader. Alton smiles. He offers Michael a beer. He welcomes the massive football star back to the absolute bottom of the food chain. But Alton is a predator. He thrives on tearing down anyone who actually escapes the gravity of the neighborhood. Alton starts talking about the Tuohy family. He makes a highly aggressive, completely disgusting, predatory comment about Leigh Anne and Michael's teenage sister Collins. The psychological switch violently flips. Michael thought he was angry at the Tuohys, but the absolute second, the true predator threatens the woman who saved his life. Michael's 98th percentile protective instinct completely explodes. He does not argue. He does not yell. Michael grabs the gang leader. He violently throws him against the wall like a completely weightless ragdoll. Alton's heavily armed enforcers try to attack, but Michael destroys the room. He is a terrifying, unstoppable force of pure, absolute defense. He shatters the gang's control in a matter of seconds and kicks the door open, escaping back into the dark. But back in the wealthy suburbs, Leigh Anne Tuohy is completely terrified. Her son is missing. She does not call the police. She knows the police do not care about a massive black teenager in the projects. Leigh Anne gets into her expensive luxury car. She drives directly across the invisible wall. She drives entirely alone into the absolute most dangerous blocks of Hurt Village. She is surrounded by gang members. Alton's enforcers block her car. They threaten her. They tell her she does not belong there. But Leigh Anne is a mother, and a mother protecting her cub is infinitely more dangerous than a street gang. She rolls down her window. She does not cower. She looks the gang members directly in the eye and completely threatens their lives. She tells them she is heavily armed and absolutely unhinged. The sheer, unfiltered audacity completely backs them down. She finally finds Michael. He is sitting alone in a dark, empty laundromat, the same place he used to hide when he was completely homeless. Leigh Anne sits down next to him. The high society interior designer and the massive traumatized teenager sit in absolute quiet. Leigh Anne drops all the pressure. She drops the football expectations. She tells him an absolute unconditional truth. She tells Michael that if he wants to completely quit football and flip burgers for the rest of his life, she will entirely support him. Michael looks at her. The psychological poison completely evaporates. He realizes the NCAA investigator was entirely wrong. Leigh Anne did not buy a football player. She actually, truly loves her son. Michael returns to the NCAA headquarters. He sits back down in the sterile interrogation room. The investigator prepares to aggressively question him again, but Michael cuts her off. He looks her entirely in the eye. He tells her he's going to play for Ole Miss. The investigator asks him why. She expects a rehearsed, manipulated answer. Michael delivers the absolute, shattering emotional climax of the story. Because it's where my family goes to school. The federal machine is completely neutralized. The investigation is closed. Michael Oher completely breaks the generational curse of his bloodline. He graduates high school. He dominates college football. He is drafted in the first round of the NFL draft, walking onto the massive stage and hugging the exact woman who pulled him out of the freezing rain. The Blindside is an absolute masterpiece because it entirely deconstructs the myth of charity. It shows us that true empathy is not writing a check or feeling sorry for someone. True empathy is destroying your own comfort zone, shattering your own social boundaries, and risking absolutely everything to pull someone out of the dark. The Tuohys saved Michael's life, but Michael completely saved their souls. If you appreciate strict, factual, deep dives into the greatest movies ever made, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to Epic Lens. We respect the films, we stick to the facts, and we bring you the real story. Until next time, keep your eyes open.